Welcome to the Daily Dharma, a gentle podcast where we read a philosophical story every week and reflect on how it relates to everyday life. Our focus is to use Buddhist philosophy to understand the complexity of modern life and find achievable and accessible pathways to peace and happiness. Hi everyone, welcome to the Daily Dharma. In this episode, we'll be talking about being right here and how it can be hard sometimes, but so important to remember what is happening right in front of us and within us in the present moment. The story that we'll be reflecting on this theme is called A Leaf of Wisdom, and it comes from the book Zen Stories with Master Seiji by Daiki Shimada. Here's how the story goes. While walking through the village, Seiji encountered a young monk who had heard of Seiji's reputation for unusual wisdom. Eager to test this wisdom, the monk approached with a question designed to challenge. "Master Seiji," the monk began, confidence in his voice, "if Zen is about the mind of no mind, how does one enter such a state? Surely there must be a method or path." Seiji stopped and looked at the monk, his expression calm. Without a word, he picked up a fallen leaf from the ground and handed it to the monk. Confused, the monk took the leaf, expecting some further instruction. "So, let me ask you a question. How did this leaf enter your hand?" Seiji asked after a moment. The monk, who was expecting a philosophical talk about the no mind of Zen, was momentarily caught off guard. "Well, you gave it to me," he replied cautiously. "And before I picked up the leaf, where was it?" Seiji continued. The monk took a moment to answer. "It was on the ground, right?" Beginning to sense where Seiji was leading. "So, did the leaf make an effort to enter your hand, or did it simply find itself there through the action of being picked up?" Seiji pressed on. The monk's eyes widened as the point struck home. It was simply there, and then it was simply here. It didn't enter or leave. It just was. Seiji nodded, the hint of a smile on his lips. "Your effort to find no mind is like catching the air with a net." Bowing deeply to Master Seiji with the leaf in his palm, the monk left with a new understanding of life. I really appreciate this story because I feel like the monk who is searching for the no mind is very similar to how people get lost in the philosophical mazes of this and that. And instead of really focusing on what is really going on with us, we become distracted by these questions of mind and no mind. Within Buddhist philosophy and scripture, there's a particular type called Abhidharma, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to study and learn more about it. But I do feel that with any type of study, with any kind of topic which has a lot of literature, and where a lot time has elapsed between the people who may have originally written it or heard it, and then people interpreting it thousands of years later, there's almost an endless amount of debate that you can have about what one word means or what one verse can be referring to. And while, again, it's not that there's anything wrong with looking at things like an academic, but if your goal is to elevate yourself and to develop your mind and your being and your spirit, well, you're not going to do that by psychoanalyzing one tiny piece of verse, or in the case of this monk, endlessly trying to debate people on what the no mind is and how to achieve it. The way to really finally understand what it is to live and to be happy, to let go of whatever is bothering you, is to really examine what's in front of you and to try to be here and really be here right now. And I think in our modern world, trying to be here is harder than ever because we don't just have our own thoughts, but we have the thoughts of hundreds, if not thousands, of other people accessible within a click on our smartphones. And I think for so many of us, myself included, we completely underestimate how powerful the thoughts and ideas of other people are. And this is especially the case when we see that a piece of content or a trend has gotten a certain number of likes, a certain number of shares, because it makes us feel as though in participating in this, we are part of an in-group, we're part of a majority. And just in the short term, our brain feels happy from doing this, like we're getting closer to the destination, the goal, this feeling of belongingness. But of course, as many people discover over time, it's always very temporary and it's always very short. And I think this is also the same thing when it comes to trying to go through life by doing anything but living it, by trying to avoid being with yourself, trying to avoid actually sitting there, slowing down, doing things the hard way. We often find so many avenues of content, of hobbies, of literature, of this and that, which again, they have their own merit. But if your goal is to find what is happening within yourself, the last thing you should do is look away. And of course, things like trauma, things like rumination, our own mental health issues, all of these things make it even harder to just sit with ourselves. And it does not help also that life is just so much full of pressures that are coming at so many angles. But I really do think that peace begins by just learning to say to yourself that, well, despite everything that's going on, I'm just going to choose to be here with myself. I'm not going to run away from these thoughts and emotions and experiences I'm having. I'm just going to acknowledge and validate them and just sit with them. And I'm also not going to expect them to immediately go away. I'm not going to label them and create an entire storm within myself trying to get rid of them immediately. There is such an immense magic in just sitting with yourself and slowly learning to accept yourself as you are. But I really do think that as hard as it is to do, that is the beginning of the spiritual journey. In fact, that's probably the whole spiritual journey, just learning to become yourself more and more. And when you learn who you are and why you are the way you are, when you learn to be at peace with yourself and all the parts that you contain, looking at the world becomes so much easier because you see the same conflicts and complexities in every person, in every conflict, and every phenomena. You see that the universe is just as complex and sometimes unknowable as we are. And when this realization comes to us, instead of feeling that endless fear and panic and dread of the unknown, we realize that things are actually just much more familiar to us than we could have possibly guessed before. And all of this kind of leads to a place of knowing, a place of peace, a place of acceptance that is so much deeper than all those surface level analyses that we can conduct on other things and even on our lives. There is such a peace to simply being here in the now, and I don't think there really is a replacement for that. But I do respect that for many of us, myself included, it may take a very, very long time to even do that for 5 seconds or 10 seconds. But that journey to get there is absolutely worth it. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. May you have a beautiful, safe, and joyful week ahead of you. And if you have any questions or thoughts you'd like to share, please email me at dailydharmapodcast@gmail.com, and I would love to hear from you. Until next week.